Am I the a-hole for breaking up with my boyfriend after he faked his own death and then blamed me for how I reacted? I was 21 and my boyfriend was 24. We'd been together for 3 years, lived separately, and were even planning to rent a place together soon. Until this happened, I honestly thought our relationship was healthy. Before I tell you what happened, there's one important piece of context. I've struggled with self-harm since I was 11 years old. I hadn't relapsed in 2 years, I was in therapy, and I had worked incredibly hard to get to a better place. My boyfriend also had an ex who used to manipulate him by threatening self-harm whenever he wanted to leave. Because of that, when we first started dating, he worried I might do the same. I never did. We talked through it years ago, and I believed we'd moved past those fears. Then everything changed in a single day. One night, he went out drinking with his friends. Normally, he'd text me around 2 in the morning to let me know he got home safely, but that night, I never heard from him. I figured he had simply forgotten, so I went to bed. The next morning, I woke up to a bunch of missed calls from his mom. I called her back, but instead she texted me saying she couldn't talk. I told her I was worried. Then she texted me something I'll never forget. She said my boyfriend had been in a crash the night before and that he didn't make it. At first, I was confused. It felt strange that she'd tell me something so serious through text, but after a few more messages, I completely believed he had died. I shut down. I was home alone. The grief hit me all at once. I cried harder than I ever had in my life. I listened to old voice messages he'd sent me just to hear his voice again. I even sent him one final voice note through uncontrollable sobbing, telling him how much I loved him. In the middle of all that pain, I relapsed. My coping techniques completely failed. I genuinely believed the person I loved was gone forever. About 20 minutes later, my boyfriend walked through my front door, alive. He smiled and said it had all been a prank. He admitted he'd gotten into a small accident while driving drunk. He thought I'd be angry about the drunk driving and the damage to his car, so he and his friends came up with a plan. They took his mother's phone, pretended to be her, and convinced me he had died. The idea, according to him, was that I'd just be happy he was alive, instead of angry. I was relieved he wasn't actually dead, but that relief was buried under anger, heartbreak, and disbelief. I was furious that he drove drunk, furious that he lied, furious that he let me believe he was dead for over an hour, and completely devastated that the only reason he ended the prank was because my voice message made him feel bad. Then he found out I'd relapsed. Instead of comforting me, he got angry. He accused me of ruining a harmless joke. He said I was trying to punish him. He claimed I was manipulating him with guilt. He even suggested I should be hospitalized because of my mental health. Then he said something that completely stunned me. He told me he couldn't trust himself to ever leave me now because I'd react like his ex. But I hadn't reacted to a breakup. I reacted because I genuinely believed he had died. That's what hurt the most. He wasn't taking responsibility for any of it. Instead, he was acting like I was the problem. At that point, my gut told me to leave, but I wondered if I was overreacting. Make sure you follow for more videos posted daily. Some of the comments were eye-opening. One commenter said, "What a sick joke. You need to break things off ASAP." Another commenter pointed out that his reaction wasn't even the worst part. They said the fact that he showed no empathy after seeing what I'd gone through and immediately blamed me instead was reason enough to leave. I replied that his behavior felt completely out of character, which is why I was struggling so much to process it. Update. 13 days later, I broke up with him. The reasons were simple. He drove drunk and endangered other people. He stole his mother's phone to deceive me. He convinced me he was dead. He let me believe it for hours. He refused to genuinely take responsibility. He told me I was too sensitive. And he got angry at me for relapsing instead of showing compassion. One thing I want to make clear is that I don't blame him for my relapse. That part is still my responsibility, and I continued going to therapy. I also spoke with his mother afterward. She was incredibly apologetic, and I even helped her put a passcode on her phone so something like this couldn't happen again. When my ex and I met to talk, he initially seemed apologetic. He listened while I explained exactly why I was ending the relationship. But once he realized I wasn't changing my mind, the apology disappeared. He became annoyed and once again told me I was being dramatic. One commenter summed it up perfectly. "The guy who faked his own death is calling you dramatic." I said what I needed to say, got my closure, and walked away. So tell me, am I the a-hole?